Let's analyze the situation at the front and also discuss the Russian reserves for a potential offensive with our studio guest. This is Serhii Kuzan, head of the Ukrainian Center for Security and Cooperation. Welcome, Mr. Serhii.
Hello, Vasilina.
So first of all, I want to let our viewers know that a QR code has appeared on your TV screens. So during our conversation, you can support our defenders. Specifically, what needs are the funds being raised for and for which brigade? Please tell us about it, Mr. Serhii.
Indeed, the 2nd Battalion of the 4th Brigade, Rubizh of the National Guard of Ukraine, is raising funds for a ground robotic complex. And it's certainly no secret that cargo delivery is carried out either by air or on the ground, specifically with the help of such GRCs. And they have a significantly greater carrying capacity, so you can deliver more and also evacuate from positions. This means that our soldiers will be better supplied in places where, well, it's actually often impossible to reach them by other means. And the brigade itself, and specifically this battalion, are renowned units. They are, by the way, a self-formed unit established back in the year 2015, and they have participated in absolutely all the major battles. Hostomel, where they successfully prevented the landing of Russian paratroopers, Bakhmut, and even before that, Lysychansk and Sieverodonetsk. So these highly experienced assault units also played a crucial role in holding back the occupiers. In other words, you could say that wherever the hottest spots were, these were truly highly motivated professional fighters, assault troops, who really deserve support and proper provision.
Dear Ukrainians, I urge you to support our fighters from the NGO Rubizh. You can now see the QR code and card number for donations on your screens. As you heard, they are raising funds for ground robotic systems, extremely important resources and tools in this modern technological war. After all, these robots, these machines, can go where it would be extremely dangerous for our defenders, constantly under the sky where there are enemy eyes and enemy drones. Ground robotic systems are used for logistics, for evacuation, for delivering supplies, and even for combat missions. So you can provide such systems for our defenders and say thank you to them with your donation. Please join in. Every hryvnia matters and should work towards victory. Mr. Serhii, let's start with the current situation at the front. What can you tell us about the current operational situation in the Kharkiv region, particularly in the Kupiansk direction? How intense are the battles there?
It should be noted that the Russians are not giving up attempts to infiltrate Kupiansk itself, and indeed, from the north, they are trying to somehow regain their lost positions. However, the entire situation in the city and its surroundings is under control. And by the way, this situation is also under the supervision of Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrskyi. The primary objective at this moment is to drive and repel the Russians, as great a distance away from the city as possible. Of course, they are trying to get in there. Through the pipes, for example, they are trying to infiltrate in any way possible, just to slip through and stay. There are about 20 occupiers currently in the city itself. They are hiding there, but overall the situation is under control by our defense forces. Of course, it is complicated by the fact that on the left bank of the Oskil River, that is, along the Oskil, fighting is ongoing, meaning the occupiers are trying to get in there. However, overall, of course, every single day, all military units in this specific direction prove that the Russians are simply not achieving any significant success at all.
Are there still attempts by the Russians to cross the Oskil River, and are they unsuccessful?
Yes, they are not successful. It is certainly true that we do have significant problems right now, and we are also facing some very serious issues with delivering essential supplies and everything else necessary to our group stationed on the left bank. However, the Russian forces have also already completely abandoned the idea of attempting such massive crossings, specifically the process of setting up pontoon bridges and transferring any significant military forces from one bank to the other, primarily because all of the various approaches to the city are currently under our direct and constant fire control.
What can you say about the situation around Borova? The Russian authorities have already claimed, supposedly, to have occupied the settlement. However, our supporters, of course, have refuted this information. What are the Russians using to storm there?
Well, this is yet another example, just like with Kupiansk, when, according to Gerasimov, their commander-in-chief, Kupiansk had already been taken, and now we are hearing the exact same kind of statements regarding Borova. Why exactly is this happening right now? It's because they have not achieved any significant or tangible successes in this direction. Indeed, substantial military forces have been concentrated, and according to their own Russian plans, they should have already entered Borova in order to exert strategic pressure directly on Lyman. to cut off the main supply route for our group located in the north of the Donetsk region. So they have not yet been able to achieve their objectives, even though they have amassed a significant amount of strategic reserves. That is, as far as I know, our forces there. This area falls within the sector of the 3rd Army Corps, which is responsible for this front, and the occupiers are being consistently halted there at every turn. They are constantly sustaining heavy and continuous losses, and therefore, the enemy's strategic plans to create, so to speak, a northern pincer for the Donetsk region have, as of this very moment in time, effectively reached a state of total and absolute collapse.
Ukrainian defense forces repel Russian attacks every day, counter-assault troops, and destroy the occupiers. And in particular, there is currently an open fundraiser for the Rubizh National Guard fighters to acquire ground robotic systems, which are extremely important tools in this technological war. You can join this fundraiser and support our defenders. Donate the cost of your morning or afternoon coffee. This could be someone's chance to survive. Mr. Serhii, let's talk more about the situation in the Pokrovsk direction. Deep state analysts claim that the Russians are building up their forces there. Can you confirm this information?
Yes, indeed. The largest grouping is concentrated there, 106,000, and that's just personnel, including reserves. That's why an enormous amount of work is being done by all our defense forces in this direction, particularly by the 7th Army Corps of our air assault forces. With their well-organized defensive operations, they are effectively holding back the largest enemy grouping, which outnumbers us by several times. Sometimes the enemy's advantage there is more than tenfold, so this is truly extraordinary and remarkable work. The occupiers are suffering very heavy and significant losses there. And of course, this direction is difficult. But we have, of course, heard the reports that supposedly there is further enemy advancement and a continued buildup. And that's true, it really is so. The enemy is trying to amass as much force as possible there, but likewise in the area of Pokrovsk, in the area of Mirnohrad and further north, we have our positions, thanks to which the enemy still cannot occupy this territory or advance further north into Donetsk region.
At the same time, some military analysts claim that the Russians' offensive is slowing down. What do you think about this? For example, President Volodymyr Zelensky said that we have successes at the front.
We really do have successes at the front. Right now, we can see that there is indeed both the deoccupation of our territories in certain areas of the front, and also a noticeable slowdown in the pace of the Russians' advance in various other sectors of the front. Again, according to Deputy Head of the Presidential Office Pavlo Palisa, he specifically cited calculations in his comments. This means a slowdown in the enemy's advance by a factor of 1 to 2 or even 1 to 3. If we make a direct comparison with the same period last year, and since December of last year, we have also seen that these rates are consistently trending downwards, while the cost of advancing is steadily on the rise. It increases manifold for the occupier, so in fact, every meter of a field or a tree line costs them truly heavy losses, which the enemy is currently unable to compensate for. And from this, we conclude that their de facto summer offensive campaign is not achieving its objectives, and it can no longer lead to their main goal, that is, reaching the administrative borders of Donetsk and Luhansk regions. I would just like to remind you that even Luhansk region is not entirely occupied by the enemy yet, at least formally.
After all, Ukrainian soldiers are defending every centimeter of our sacred land and reclaiming it. Dear viewers, I urge you to join the fundraiser for the Rubizh National Guard fighters. The QR code and card number for donations are now on your screens. Every hryvnia should work towards victory. Thank our defenders right now. Mr. Serhii, I would like to touch on another topic. Recently, the Kremlin has been actively talking about its intention to intensify strikes on so-called decision-making centers in Ukraine. Is this a psychological information operation, or is it a real threat?
Of course, we must take any threat, including the threat of strikes, very seriously and with great care. It's no secret that the Russians have struck, are striking, and will continue to strike with all the means they have. They really do have a stockpile of both missiles and drones. But could something happen? That is, could they strike with something they haven't used before? No, in reality, they can't do that. That is, during this time, our defense forces have significantly reduced their capabilities for example, missile launches. Well, their strategic aviation aircraft, the ones that launch, for example, the KH-101, which is a large cruise missile, the operational resources of these aging airframes are steadily wearing out. That is to say, they can no longer, so to speak, carry under their wings the same high number of missiles as they did back in 2022. Consequently, they simply cannot carry out such a massive missile launch anymore. As for the Kaliber missile carriers, these are sea-launched cruise missiles. They have been hit by our drones in the same way. A truly vast amount of work has been done throughout this entire period. So, even there, the Russians cannot use these ships to carry out a truly massive Kaliber missile launch. So, despite the fact that the Russians really do have a substantial stockpile of missiles, their capability, their operational throughput for a massive launch that would surpass previous ones, they currently do not have. At the same time, our own capabilities are steadily developing. Our unmanned systems forces are developing, as are those in our line units, so to speak, our small-scale air defense, whose task is to prevent drones, which the Russians really do have in large numbers, along with many launch sites, from getting through. But our capabilities for drone interception are also growing. Well, once again, according to the latest reports from Commander-in-Chief Serhii, up to 40% of hostile UAVs are now being successfully shot down while still approaching to prevent these drones from entering our country. And this percentage of interceptions is constantly and steadily increasing. The greater number of interceptor drones we have and the more skilled and trained teams we have, these highly specialized small fire groups, the higher the percentage of Shaheds being shot down will be. And accordingly, the overall effectiveness of using this weapon is significantly reduced and diminished.
Mr. Serhii, one more question. What was the purpose of the Russians launching the Oreshnik? By the way, analysts from the Institute for the Study of War stated that there may have been 2 launches carried out on the night of May 24th, and that one missile allegedly struck the Russians' own positions near Avdiivka.
Yes, that is correct. There were indeed 2 launches. It appears that there were 2 launches, and we understand that the Russians may have intended to carry out a strike against Kiev. That is, considering the logic of these events, this is specifically a strike on key targets in Kiev, a demonstrative one targeting the civilian population and civilian infrastructure. There were expectations that they would also send these 2 missiles to the center of the capital. But there was a significant deviation, and we saw one hit a garage cooperative and the other ended up in Donetsk region at its position. Of course, the Russians are trying to keep this quiet, and this serves as a clear demonstration once more that while they do have weapons, thanks to both our skills and their distinct lack of advanced technology, it turns out that besides explosive destructive power, you also need sufficient accuracy. And this weapon is still, well, of significant operational importance. That is, this is a medium-range missile, not a tactical one. And the accuracy of this missile is simply insufficient. Now we have seen that, in principle, Putin's main scare tactic did not actually work as he had originally intended.
Mr. Serhii, thanks so much for this conversation and for joining the broadcast.
Thank you.
Thanks to viewers joining the fundraiser. Our studio guest was Serhii Kuzan, head of the Ukrainian Center for Security and Cooperation.